So in your booklet, you'll see a different chart. But this one, I think, is a little easier to read. It doesn't have all the data behind it. So what do colleges look for in priority order? So the first one they look at is, how did you challenge yourself? What kind of coursework did you take? And they'll know what your high school offers. And they'll say, did they take an academic course? Did they take an honors course? Did they take an AP course in this particular subject? Based on what that high school, not every high school, that high school offered. So South Brunswick, Freehold, what are they offering as far as levels of math, levels of history? And did you try and challenge yourself? Now some high schools have fixed Agania Sen's high tech, and her curriculum is fairly baked. They have to take a prescribed curriculum, with few exceptions. There's a few exceptions. But other students can pick and choose and sign off. So my suggestion to the parents is not that you want them to take 30 AP courses and kill themselves, do some self-study, but you want them to challenge themselves enough, especially in areas where they're thinking of majoring in. So if they have an AP Calc BC course and they only take AB and they're thinking about being an applied math major, that may not have been a good plan. You see my point? Or engineering is 1 year of calc going to be enough. So pushing on those little things are important, and that's kind of what we do, is look at every time they're signing up for coursework, what are the course selections? What should you be doing in the summer that kind of offsets something? Maybe you take a course at Brookdale Community or Middlesex County to build up your math, accelerate your math a little bit, or your science, take a science course, or taking something independently. I have a lot of kids who will take, because their school doesn't offer a course in something they have a passion in, so they self-study it and sit for the AP exam to validate that they have the content. Does that make sense? Coming out of my mouth, it seemed like it did, but then my head said, I don't know if I explained that well. Did you get it? Yeah. Are you being kind? Okay. So performance becomes the next measure. You know, how did you do GPA-wise on that difficult curriculum? Next becomes standardized tests. And I always get asked the question, should I take SAT, ACT, colleges accept ACT? Anybody have those questions, or you got answers to those? Questions? So you kind of get that one, right? Internships, research, publications. A lot of people sit in these chairs and they say, publications, how am I going to publish as a high school student? Students do. They write a poem, they do a piece of research, they do joint research with someone, they attend one of the science competitions, and then present, take their trifolds and put it into a research-based thesis. We have some high schools that actually force students to write a, they call it an extended essay, but it's like a modified thesis. So heavy-duty research. So that's who people are competing against. You are competing against students who do publish, who do very complicated internships. In Monmouth County, all the academies have an internship component where they actually go and work in a related do and update them on things that they've done. Build a resume, bring the resume in. Ask them questions about colleges and majors and courses they should select. So now the guidance counselor, when if you've done this as a freshman, you would have had 12 meetings with your guidance counselor. So even if you're just doing it as a rising senior, if you do it in September 1 and have an agenda, they may kind of remember things that you did, talked about, experienced, and include it in their letter. If you don't, you're going to get a generalized letter, I think, because they probably don't know you very well. A lot of high schools are using things called brag sheets, parent brag sheets, student brag sheets, and you write comments as a parent on things you observed about your child. Or student writes things about them they want the guidance counselor to remember. All schools don't use them. Some parents never complete them. I coach the parents, in fact, ask them to draft their brag sheet, send it to me, and then we edit them, send them back to them, and then they submit them. I also look at the student ones and do the same, and then try and make sure there's a link there between what the student's saying about themselves and what the parents saying about themselves. Because the worst thing you can do is start looking like you're schizophrenic. You have multiple personalities. So you want some commonality between them. And you want to use words that trigger a positive reaction from the admissions people. Like one, and a lot of parents will use this one, hardworking. She or he or she is very hardworking. Admission counselors oftentimes use those words and say, dumb as a rock, but hardworking. So what could you use instead of hardworking? Persistent, grit, determined. See the difference? So use words that are more action trigger words than hardworking sounds like a plow horse. An ox that plows the field versus someone who actually is a mover, a shaker, dynamic, a contributor. These sound like small little things, but think about you guys read resumes, you read resumes for potential employees. They're screened by word choices. If these words don't pop up on the resume scan, you're going to bring them in for an interview. It's the same thing. They have the same kind of process. So you make sure you have trigger words that generate positive things. Teacher recommendations. I coach them on who they pick, why they pick them, things that they follow up with their guide, with their teacher, experiences in that classroom. Why did they pick them? What do they think of majoring? How you helped me become a better mathematician, especially this section on blah, where I really liked the labs we did in this. Be very, very specific. So then when the teacher is writing those recommendations, they cut and paste and put some of those experiences in their letter. Awards and recognition, they look to see if there's been certain things, accomplishments, anybody else validating that you're this great producer. Extracurricular activities and volunteer, they're looking for leadership, they're looking for innovation, they're looking for things that relate to what you're majoring in. So if you've done if you went to the Rutgers mini med program and you're thinking about going into a med program, that makes sense. If you went to Liberty Science Center and you were doing research at Stevens over the summer and you're thinking about going into engineering, makes sense. But if you worked for the last 4 years as a caddy on a golf course, that makes sense. That's one experience. It's not 4, it's 1. You've done it 4 times. I have kids who work at summer camps every summer. Same thing over and over again. They went there as a counselee. Now they are working as a camp counselor. Same camp, same experience. A little more responsibility. I get it, but is it enough? See the difference? Anybody in here a camp counselor? Got any insult anybody? So work experience. For some students who I'll be unkind and say they're a little socially awkward,